something deeply disturbing about the way Hollywood treated Brooke Shields. And we talk about Hollywood like it's some like urban legend, but what really happened to Brooke Shields? And this is not a rumor, this is not a conspiracy theory, it's all real. And it's way worse than most people know. It's not just one film or one bad decision. It was an entire industry choosing to exploit this child over and over and over again. She was only 11 years old when she was first sexualized on the big screen. By the time she was 12, she was considered a sex symbol, and she was 15 when she lost control of her whole image. This isn't just a story about fame gone wrong. This is an absolute horror story. Here's what really happened. Also, hi, my name is Grace. I make all sorts of spooky, freaky videos. So if you like this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe below. It really helps me out. This is my cat, Casper. He was sitting at my feet and I always like to introduce him, but he's not really in the mood to be on the big screen today. Or I guess I should say the little screen. So I'm gonna start you at the very beginning. We're gonna go in chronological order. Brooke Shields started modeling before she could even walk. Like literally her first gig was when she was 11 months old. She wasn't even a year yet. So in 1975, she was 10 years old. She did a photo shoot that was affiliated with Playboy. Her mother brought her to pose for this nude photographer named Gary Gross, fitting. And the images featured her fully unclothed, oiled up, wearing makeup and jewelry, and she was posed very suggestively, of course. And these images were published in a Playboy spin-off called Sugar and Spice. And she was a 10-year-old, naked. When Brooke got older, she decided she was going to sue to try to reclaim those rights, but then the court ruled against her. And this is because she was categorized as a model, not a performer, so she didn't have any ownership or say. And these photos still exist. I'm not gonna like show them. They exist in private collections. Do not look them up because that is CP. And Brooke Shields obviously wanted these images gone, but there was literally nothing she or anyone else could do to get them removed, like legally speaking, which is insane that that's a thing. Like it's wild that like because of these contracts and stuff, I guess there was no sort of clause where she could revoke her like consent. And I mean, I guess she did it so long ago, but like, oh, it's just so sad. So 1976, the next year, she's still a 10-year-old at the time. And this is a full year before Pretty Baby came out. And Pretty Baby we talk about next, and that's a whole other thing. But New York Magazine puts Brooke on the cover, and the headline says, Brooke is 12, she poses nude. Terry is her mother. She thinks it's swell. How does like no one see a problem in this? And this wasn't some like underground tabloid. This is New York Magazine. This is like a mainstream magazine. And then that specific article mysteriously vanished from the online archives years later. I think we all know why. And the magazine lied. She was 10 at the time. She was not 12. God forbid we have a kid on the cover. 1977, she's 11 years old. Brooke is cast in this film called Pretty Baby. And in this critically acclaimed movie, she plays a character named Violet, who is a child growing up in a brothel. This is a film where she plays a 12-year-old prostitute. And she appeared nude on camera at 11 years old as a 12-year-old. And instead of like this causing an outrage, right? People were saying that her performance was mature and beautiful. People were like praising it. Let that sink in. She appears nude in the film, not like suggested, not implied, like actually filmed. An 11-year-old completely exposed in this wide release studio film. Disgusting. And Hollywood didn't just like let it happen, they celebrated it. And nobody seemed to care that they had exploited a literal child. Like this film was distributed by Paramount and the adults profited off of the sexualization of this literal child and they kept doing it. 1978, she's now an actual 12-year-old. And that's when this infamous High Times magazine article comes out. And the magazine described her using disturbingly graphic language, calling her a prepubescent vamp and a priceless commodity. And they wrote that the producers are holding their breath, waiting for her to reach a reasonable age. And they praised the character that she played who sells her body for money. This was in a print for a national audience. And then people read this on the newsstand and just like moved on. 1979, she's 13 years old. In the film Just You and Me Kid, Brooke appears nude or is body doubled 3 separate times, and she's still a child. 1980, she's 14. Brooke is cast in this film called The Blue Lagoon. And once again, underage nudity, implied sex scenes, and a script that revolves around her body. Brooke had later revealed that the studio used body doubles without her knowledge to make it appear like she was doing things that she wasn't even aware of that was like supposed to happen in the film. So people were watching it thinking it was her. But that's why I mentioned in Just You and Me Kid, they also could have body doubled her and she wouldn't know. But in Pretty Baby, it was all her. And obviously, like, she is a child. She has a lot of pressure by like her mother, clearly, and like all these studios to do all these things. Like, she doesn't want to mess up her career. She doesn't want to lose these opportunities. She didn't know any better. So I don't blame her at all. Like, she was not of the legal age of consent when she was doing these magazine shoots, when she was doing these films. So like, if you're like, oh, well, she consented to it. No, she didn't. Not really. In 1981, she's 15 years old. Brooke plays a girl the same age as her in a film called Endless Love, and she becomes romantically involved with this boy. The film has a love scene that led the MPAA to initially give it an X rating for the explicit content, and then after they did some edits, the film was re-rated to R. Then, that same year, the Calvin Klein thing comes out, and this is like a famous, iconic line. It's, "Do you know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." That's what she says. She's 15 years old, remember? And here's the twist, like, the media's obsession wasn't even with her talent. They were obsessed with the fact that she was still a virgin. And magazines were always asking her about it. Men wrote articles just like fantasizing about her. She became a brand, and that brand was Jailbait. And as she got older, she lost like even more control of her image, as if she had any to begin with. Her mother, Terry Shields, clearly is enabling all of this, trying to profit off of it, I guess. And she acted like her manager. So her mother was the one signing her off on these roles and on these photo shoots. And clearly this was for like fame and money. She clearly didn't want what was best for her daughter. I would be disgusted if like my little sister was put in that kind of position. Absolutely not. I can't imagine like my own child that I birthed. Disgusting woman, disgusting woman. But Brooke wasn't just being controlled by her mom. She was also being puppeted by the entire industry and like the film studios. I'm looking at my script. I wrote a fucking bar in here. Listen to this. They commodified her body before she even understood what it meant to own it. Really let that sink in. She later revealed that she was SA'd by a Hollywood executive in her 20s, and she felt powerless to speak up, which, judging by how she's been treated her entire career, her entire life, her career started when she was 11 years old. Years old. Sorry, there's no year yet. She's not even a year old. Her career started when she was 11 months old. Of course she felt powerless to speak up. She doesn't know any better. She has been trained to just be this sex symbol since she was a fucking baby. Like, the poor woman can't even catch a break. She has a memoir out. It just came out this year. It's called Brooke Shields is Not Allowed to Get Old: Thoughts on Aging as a Woman. But Brooke Shields recounts a deeply personal and traumatic experience about having a non-consensual medical procedure. And this happened in her 40s. She went under for a labiaplasty, which is a surgery down there to, you know, help with the discomfort of like chafing and pain. And she'd experienced that throughout high school because different girls, their downstairs looks a little different than each other, and hers was just giving her a lot of pain, and it was like rubbing. And her gynecologist, her doctor, recommended this procedure for her. However, upon waking up from the surgery, and this is absolutely terrifying, imagine thinking you're going in for a surgery for one thing and then more things are added and you're like, wait, what? I didn't sign off to this. Horrifying. This poor girl has never felt like she has had any control over her body. So she wakes up from the surgery and she was informed by the surgeon that he had also performed a vaginal rejuvenation vaginoplasty surgery without her consent. He just threw it in like a little extra. And yeah, he referred to it as a bonus for her. He said, this is a little bonus for you. Little bonus. And I get, like, you know, throwing in something extra, but maybe fucking ask. Maybe ask before you do that to someone. Cause maybe she would have been down, you know, you never know. But like, it's so violating that like she woke up and it had just already been done. Like, that's nightmare fuel, that's horrifying. She even explained this as such an invasion in her book. She said it felt like some sort of form of rape, which I know like sounds intense, but I totally understand. Like, it's down there, like she didn't consent to it. Like, I 1000% side with her. And she just expressed her feelings in the book of feeling like violated and betrayed. And she initially initially kept the incident private, not even disclosing this to like her husband for some time. She just felt so disgusting about it. And she was afraid that she was going to be shamed, and she was afraid she was going to face public scrutiny. Poor thing, because this is how she's been conditioned her whole life. So as she grows up and she becomes an adult, she doesn't feel like she can advocate for her body. And ultimately she decided she wasn't going to pursue legal action. She stated that she didn't want discussions about her anatomy to dominate media coverage again. She said, "I didn't want to sue this man, or maybe I did want to, but I didn't feel like I could because I didn't particularly want to talk about my lady parts once again on the front page of every paper." But you need to advocate for yourself, ladies. Like, consent is so important, and if some sort of doctor, especially if a surgeon, takes that away from you in like a surgery that was supposed to be just like for your health, you need to speak up. People need to be losing their medical licenses over things like this. It's not okay, and I've heard it happen to so many women. Like, you also hear about like the husband stitch after women give birth and they get like sewn back up because sometimes they'll rip. Like, the doctor will add a couple extra stitches like for the husband, but then that leads to a lot of pain for women, and it sometimes ruins them forever. But sadly, like, Brooke's story is not some isolated horror. This is a pattern in Hollywood. Like, you would think like it's 2025, things have changed, and things have changed a bit, because, you know, we talk about things more, but things are still not where they should be with these poor young women. Drew Barrymore was blacklisted by the age of 12, institutionalized at the age of 13, and introduced to drugs and alcohol by her caretakers during her child stardom. Jodie Foster, who was also 12 when she starred in Taxi Driver, she played a child prostitute in scenes opposite Robert De Niro, and that film won an Oscar. Tatum O'Neal, she was 10 when she won an Academy Award, and in her memoir, she later talked about the trauma of being sexualized by adult men from the moment she entered the industry. Now let's talk about more recently. Millie Bobby Brown was 13 when the internet began counting down the days she turned 18. People were sexualizing her from the start. And then Jeanette McCurdy, she wrote in her memoir titled "I'm Glad My Mom Died" about how the adults around her, including the people at Nickelodeon, they all enabled this abuse towards her. Like, this is not some twisted accident. This is a system. And it's one designed to prey on these young girls while protecting the adults behind the scenes. And if you're more interested in hearing about more stories other than Brooke Shields, I really recommend checking out Quiet on Set. It's a documentary about how the kids at Nickelodeon were terribly treated, but this is a thing that still happens today, and it's infuriating. Now, we have to talk about the redemption arc that never came. Brooke Shields went to Princeton. She tried to reclaim her voice, her image, her body. She wrote books, she did interviews, she has spoken up, and yet I feel like her story is still misunderstood. No one ever apologized to her, obviously. No one in Hollywood ever like suffered from repercussions to their actions towards her. Hollywood never admitted what they did. Not shocking at all, but still. Pisses me off. They turned this child into an object. They sold her to the world, and then they called it art. Like, she was never the problem. They were. And as I just mentioned, the problem continues. This is not getting better. There are just things that we know now will get people canceled, so they won't do them. But, you know, I'm sure they would have these children nude on magazines if it was socially acceptable. If people would still buy them and support it and not act like it's something to be ashamed of, I fear that they would still do it. Brooke's story should make us all absolutely sick. It should make you angry. And like, you have to think, like, how many other girls has Hollywood failed? And the answer is countless. Too many. And how can we make sure it never happens again? Unfortunately, it really sucks, but it will continue to happen. But the way we can prevent it from happening more and more and more is by remembering these stories and calling things out for what they are, speaking up about it, and like refusing to let history repeat. Thank you so much for listening to my rant. Comment if you want another deep dive on a Hollywood story. I love talking about this stuff. I love like just shedding light onto these situations. I know it's a little different from the content I've been making on here, but like, it really is like what I love to talk about. These are some recommended videos. If you want to keep watching my channel, I'd really appreciate it. But just never let this stuff be normalized. Even though this stuff was normalized, it was never, it has never, it will never be okay. Thank you so much for watching, guys. It'd mean a lot if you gave this video a like. See you in the next one.